Okay, so here we go. Video 3, part 2. It was just a survey for one of the doctor's appointments I went to recently, and nobody gives a fuck. Anyway, so I was staying the summer in North Carolina and go down. Had a good time. The community center. Sometimes it would be just hanging out at the community center. Sometimes we would do a scavenger hunt all over the property. Sometimes we would, actually once a week, we would load up and go to the beach. So, fun stuff, especially fourth grade. Who doesn't like going in a big group, go play at the beach? However, there was one day at the beach, things took a turn. There was a kid, I think he had a crush on me, I don't know. But we were all in the water. We were all, fairly deep in the water. And this one kid kept dunking me under and just kept on and kept on. And he kept doing it so much that I started swallowing water and I started freaking out that I was going to drown. And I didn't know what to do. And the only thing I could think to do was just kick him as hard as I could. So I just started kicking as hard as I could. And apparently I kicked him downstairs and he started to go under the water. His friends picked him up, got him out. I got out of the water. I know that he stayed away from me and ended up leaving, and I heard he went to the doctor. I feel bad about that, but I was about to drown. There was another day that I was walking through the neighborhood, and there was these kids, and they kept picking on me, and they were older kids, older boys, and they kept saying that they were going to follow me and that they wanted to come in the house, and I told them no, and they started knocking on the door, and I told them no again. And I had the Swiss Army knife on me. I carried it around because my father had just given it to me. He gave all of his children one. And so or it was nearby me. So I grab it, and because these guys pushed into the house and started raiding the fridge and started turning on the TV and, just kind of making themselves at home. And here I am, a fourth grader. I don't know what to do. And one of them starts coming to me. And whenever he starts coming to me, I pull out the knife, and I already whip it out. And the kids, or the older teens, like, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, protect myself. Get away from me. Y'all need to get out of the house. And he went to grab me, and whenever he went to grab me, it cut him a little bit on his arm. I told them I was going to call the police. They took off running. My father got mad at me for letting people in the house. I did not let them in the house. They pushed their way into the house. I did not mean to cut somebody. He should not have been coming at me or coming close to me enough, especially when all I was doing was holding it and telling them to leave. Years later, my father gave me that Swiss Army knife back. I'm pretty sure it's in my bedroom. Anyway, I don't care if he holds fault on me for that. It is what it is. For some reason, I've always had some fun instances where I've had to at least try to protect myself. It didn't always go as planned. There's more stories of that. Anyway, that was that summer. Fun stuff. 5th grade came around. We had moved to Oklahoma, back to Grove. This after the family fight. It's a new town, new small little town. I was not happy about it. I had Oklahoma City before that, nice big public school. Here I go to a small little town. Don't know anybody except my now stepfather's family. Whatever. 5th grade was pretty kosher, I guess. Fairly normal as could be. We were pretty poor, trying to make it, but fairly normal. 6th grade rolled around. I remember I had my first crush, a boy named Clayton, my first love. Everything in me. And he paid no attention to me for a few years. It was funny, but we always had a really strong bond even later as adults. He got married, and I was already married and had children, and we would keep tabs on each other once in a while. We knew each other's spouses, friends. It was possible to have friends. All the way up until he had passed. He passed a handful of years ago. They came up here and stayed with me for a couple days, him, his wife, and child, and I showed them around the area, and I went over there and stayed in Grove for a little bit and hung out over there shortly before his passing. It's kind of sad. But anyway, good hearts usually go first, I reckon. Or at least it feels that way in my world. I don't have very many good hearts left in my world. I have lost quite a few. Anyway, right before 6th grade had started, I had went to my father's again for the summer. And, man, some of the people remembered me from the summer before. Some of that's good, some of it's bad. I went down to the community center one day, and I found out that the guy that I kicked got told he couldn't have children anymore, and I had seen him from afar, and he took off running. So I don't know your name. If you ever see this video, I'm sorry. I was drowning and swallowing water. I didn't mean to make that happen, if that's really what happened. There was one day I went down to the community center, and it was a scavenger hunt day, which is usually pretty fun. They would do, in the building, outside the building, and then they had a wooded area next door, and there was also a store across the way that partook in it and would give candy and gum and stuff sometimes. And one day I was doing the scavenger hunt, and I went off into the woods looking for clues, and I didn't realize that I was followed by a couple boys. And one of these boys asked me if I was a virgin. I told him I didn't know what that meant. And he said, sex. And I said, I've never done that. I need to go. Well, he had grabbed me and pushed me down, and his friend helped hold me down while he raped me. I remember looking down, and it seemed weird, but looking back as an adult, it seemed weird because he had a condom on, and he had filled up the condom. So at least he was wearing a condom. I didn't know what to do. I took off running back to the community center. I was bleeding all over the place. I went into the bathroom. The boys were laughing at me, and I took off and went home. My father tried to make me go back to the community center that week, and I wouldn't go. And it was almost time for me to go back home. I didn't tell anybody. It's kind of funny. I know his name. But this is 5th grade, and it's not the first time that had happened in my life. I did have another instance of that happening again in my adult years, which we'll talk about on another day. So I do have 2 rape stories. That one was pretty traumatic. I was a virgin, I was bleeding, I didn't know what the fuck happened. I was too scared to tell anybody. Everybody there was just laughing. Then I had to go home, back to Oklahoma. Anyway, so 6th grade came back around. My mom's with her husband, and I don't really care for him very much, and he's abusive to her, and I feel quite alone. I actually became quite depressed and suicidal. 6th grade. I started to not care about anything. I knew that I had to have good grades, because if I didn't have good grades, I would get in trouble by my parents, and I didn't want to be in trouble. I've already got enough stuff to handle, and school wasn't hard for me, so I got good grades, and I always went to class. I didn't miss class. I was a good student. Overall, I was pretty good. Kept my room clean, but I was really depressed. I had tried to slit my wrist. I say try, and it wasn't for attention. I didn't tell anybody. I actually cut pretty deep, but I didn't cut the right direction. You know, it's funny. 6th grade, you don't really know what you're doing. You just follow what you see or think you know, and I'm glad it didn't work. I also took a belt and put it really tightly around my neck, and so tight. I ended up passing out for a little bit. Of course, I couldn't get it tight enough to do the job, but I did do it tight enough to quit breathing enough to pass out for a minute. Played a lot of angry music. I remember I did this little picture of a little skull with a t-shirt that said fuck off, and I put that on my bedroom door, trying to get my mom to fuck off. Always in my business, and she didn't understand what was wrong with me. Here I am, a good student, but so depressed and closed off, and I had some friends at school, but I don't know. Just like elementary school, I was always the girl that got along with everybody and was nice to everybody, but when it came down to being close to people, I was never really close to anybody, and I wasn't in any groups. You know, there's the goths and the weirdos and the cowboys and the preps, and yeah, I wasn't any of those. I was the quiet girl that was left alone but got along with little tidbits of people all the time everywhere. It is okay. Ew. Kind of glad I learned that young. Makes these days a little easier. I don't know what's going on with my hair. My neck keeps cramping. Well, so 6th grade was complicated. 7th grade, 8th grade. 6th grade, I got into my first fight. I wanted to be in music, and so I had signed up for music at school and ended up having to drop music because we couldn't afford it. Like I said, we were poor. I remember commodity cheese. Yes, poor. But the first day that I was in music, there was this kid named Chris, and he was the nerdy kid that nobody was really friends with, and he tried to be friends with everybody and had glasses, and you know, I didn't care. I told you I usually seek out the quiet people that need a friend, but for some reason he started teasing me, and I didn't take that very well. Looking back, he was probably just flirting, who knows. I kind of feel bad, so Chris, I'm sorry if you end up watching this video. He was teasing me, and I didn't like it very much, so as soon as music class ended, he went to walk outside the door, and I was already outside, and I just, bam, right in the nose. Yes, the nose. I didn't know the damage that could do when I did it, and thankfully he was okay. He just had a really bad bloody face for a little while, and like I said, my mom couldn't afford music, so I didn't go to music again. 8th grade came around, I got into a couple more fights. It's funny, I never seeked fighting, just people didn't like my energy, and I'm okay with that. You know, my energy is pretty chill. Whatever it is about my energy that you don't like, I'm sorry to hear that. I again, try to live with love and light and try to be as helpful as I can with everybody. So, whatever. The next fight. 8th grade, I had my first boyfriend. Clayton was still at my heart. I was still chasing him around. But I had my first boyfriend in 8th grade, and there was this girl named Jennifer that liked him too. And at least I think that's what the problem was. But she started talking shit about me and running her mouth to everybody, and I let it slide. I let it go, whatever. You know, go heal. Get over your problems. I don't care. I'm doing me in my life. But it kept on and kept on and kept on. And it kept on to the point where he came to me and told me she was becoming a problem. And then she went around telling everybody that she was going to beat my ass. But yet, I could never find her or see her anywhere. Just keep hearing all this shit. So I start getting mad. And every morning whenever the school buses would arrive, we would park the school buses in a row, and they wouldn't let us off until, on the dot, time to be let off the bus. And I'm sitting on the bus, and I see her. There's a bunch of different buildings, and I see her off in the distance going across the field into the furthest building. And I'm like, motherfucker, well, that's where you go in the mornings. And then he opened the door. I used to run. I didn't run track until a couple years later, but I was pretty fast. I took off running across that field. She was going up the stairs. I flew up the stairs, caught her before she got the door, ripped her by the hair, and pulled her down that flight of stairs, which was like 8 or 10 concrete stairs. She hit the concrete. I jumped on top of her, and I start wailing on her. Teacher comes running out and pulls me off, and I tell her, we're not done. We go to the office. We have to apologize. We both get suspended. ISS, in-school suspension. So yes, I've done that before. She switched schools. Apparently I had busted her jaw, knocked her shoulder out of place. She switched schools. I heard went to Fairland, which the next year I went to Fairland and didn't see her. So I'm thinking she was homeschooled. I don't know. There was one football game that I saw her from a distance, and I started walking towards her. It was only a year later. I still had a vendetta this 8th grade. Still had a little bit of a vendetta 7th grade. She took off running. Funny story. After I graduated high school, me and my husband and my firstborn, he was in a stroller, we went to go into a convenience store, and I had seen her again. And she took off running again. At that point, I was an adult with a child. I was going to try and make amends, but that's okay. She actually accepted my friend request. I don't know, handful of months ago, last year or something. I'm glad to see she's doing okay. Sorry if you watch this. There was another girl named Miranda. I know she's on my Facebook too, but for some reason 8th grade, I think it's just, boys are full of hormones and girls are just trying to be popular or be the big boss or whatever, figure yourselves out. But I started hearing rumor that she wanted to beat my ass. I was like, oh boy, what the fuck did I do? I didn't do anything, but okay. Lunchtime comes around, and all of a sudden, the crowd starts coming in around me. They circle all the way around you. Yeah, I'm like, all right, here it comes. She comes up to me, and she's a tall girl. Bless her soul. I know she's got a good heart, and I still to this day don't know what the fuck was going on. So Miranda, whatever it was, I'm sorry. But anyway, she came up to me and she was like, I heard you called me a bitch. So apparently other girls were probably just being girls. I didn't have anything against her. I don't even know where the fuck it came from or why, but whatever. I know Clayton had a couple of his little close girlfriends chasing after me and starting some drama, and he admitted to it later. And he thought it was fun. He said it was out of love. But it's probably something to do with that, you know, good times, middle school, high school, drama and antics. But I heard you call me a bitch. And I was like, well, if I was going to call you a bitch, I'd call you a bitch to your face. Bitch. She goes to hit me a couple times, and I just stand there, which I've already been threatened by the office. I've already been in trouble a couple times, not to be in any more fights. So I just stood there and let her hit me a couple times. We both go to the office. They try to suspend me. I think they suspended her. And my mom went up there and threw a fit and said, my daughter just stood there and took it. You're not suspending her. Got me out of trouble. You didn't mess with my mom either. But it takes a lot to get us there, because we're kind hearts. But she got me out of trouble for smoking cigarettes a couple times too. It's kind of funny. My daughter don't smoke. She never would. She gets on to me for... Yeah, she caught me eventually herself, and I got into some trouble. My mom had a wooden board that she had made and drilled holes in it and painted the words Board of Education on it. And I tell you what, that thing could fly. That thing fucking hurt. I saw that thing a lot. Many times it wasn't even deserved. Like, there was one time my mom was like, did you do the fucking dishes? And I was like, I'm supposed to do homework and then chores. And I got in trouble just because I said that. I think she was just in a mood, but got my ass whooped. Man, let me tell you. Anyway. So, 6th grade, 8th grade. I don't know. I really didn't know how to process the rape that occurred right before 6th grade started. And, you know, that's right at the time where you're a teenager and being a female, you know, you're supposed to look a certain way or try to be popular, blah, blah, blah. And I was depressive and angry, and it was hard times. I still got good grades and still did what I needed to do, but I felt the trauma. My stepdad being abusive to my mother didn't help either. There was a couple times he got a hold of me. There was one day that my mom went to go hit me and she couldn't reach me, and so my stepdad grabbed me and threw me on the floor and went to start hitting me. And I grabbed my mom's pillow and put it on top of me, and I also grabbed her by the wrists. And so I had the pillow and I had my mom by the wrist, and I was on the ground like this, and my stepfather was trying to hit me, and my mother couldn't get free because I had really strong grip. Gymnastics, remember? I have arthritis really bad now. And I drop stuff a lot, and my hand doesn't work right, but when my hand's working, I have really strong grip. She couldn't get free, so that was one instance. But there was a couple different instances of her beating the shit out of her, or threatening to beat the shit out of me, or a couple times of beating the shit out of me, a couple times of threatening sexual abuse. There was another time that he threatened it with some visual aids. We'll talk about those days soon, because that was actually 9th grade. 9th grade, things did not get any better. At this point, Macy and I were already laughing about my sitcom life, you know, all the moving around, the shit I went through when I was in North Carolina, all my parents' drama and the fighting, and what the fuck? My stepdad beat the shit out of me in 8th grade for the first time, and I had actually got a hold of DHS, and DHS moved me. They moved me to my grandmother's house, and I didn't stay there but a few months, and I ended up going back home. So I did a small little stint of 8th grade in Tulsa. I enjoyed Tulsa. That's a whole different entity. I was the minority. So I'm kind of glad I had been through the little bit of battling that I had already been through, and was a little bit tougher at this point in time, because damn, that was a rough ride for a couple days. Learning the ropes. But all's well. I actually ended up loving that school. But then I ended up going back home to my mom's. My grandma's house was weird. I had my own little space, but my uncle was like always standing in my doorway, and he's passed now, rest his soul. But he was always staring at me in my doorway. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with him standing there staring at me, and he was just really creepy. He would buy me little gifts and follow me around and always spying on me, and I didn't like it very much. And at this point in time, I was also in Tulsa, so I was starting to learn that things are a little bit more rebellious, and I started seeking attention in different directions because, I didn't have family, really. I didn't have friends, really. I had a lot of abuse going on, and, I just wanted somebody in my corner. But I started seeking it the wrong way. I had already been raped, and, I thought you're supposed to have, your friends, but a boyfriend, and I didn't realize that people didn't give a fuck about other people as much at that point in time. And if I would have noticed that, I think I would have left it alone. It wasn't worth all the trauma. And anyway, so I felt super alone, depressed, and angry, and mad at the world, and super smart, good grades, was in the who's who among American high school students when I hit 9th grade. Honor roll, always. Just a really fucked up family life. The abuse was pretty wicked, especially 9th grade. 9th grade, we had moved. This is when my mom lost the house that we were in. This little house that we were in the country. Oh, no, wait. That was the trailer. We left the trailer in the country, and we went to the little house that was out in the country, out in Fairland. So I went from Grove to Fairland for 9th grade. Fairland was even smaller. I did not like the school. I didn't like the mentality. It's a more abrasive mentality. So much shit happened in 9th grade. And my dog's barking. But I'm right at 30 minutes anyway, and I'm about tired of sitting in this chair too, y'all. When my neck starts cramping too much, I start doing that more. It also affects my arms sometimes. So, anyway, I guess next video we'll just go with 9th grade. Fairland. And all the fun that happened there. But until then, I hope everybody has a great day. Remember, it doesn't matter what you've been through. There is a reason to smile, even if you have to find it on your own. Like me sitting in my little egg chair, watching out the window, listening to the birds. Sun's starting to go down. Find your peace, y'all. You have to. If I sat upset or mad or depressed or anxious or angry or any of those things which, are evil, it drags you down. It creates a evil bubble, evil world full of turmoil, and the turmoil itself is enough. You really don't want to make it worse. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes I just cry about things or scream or want to throw things, but all in all, I'm here today. I'm breathing. Birds are chirping. Not everything's bad. Let the turmoil be the turmoil. Let the sunshine and smiles be the sunshine and smiles. Even if you have to make it, there's always something to smile about. So, anyway, have a good day. Till next time.